Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jake here from Chief Live Gaming today, bringing you a step-by-step tutorial video on how to make your very own magnetized army tray. This is very useful for wargaming, maybe even RPGs, just something that you have a lot of miniatures and you want to protect them and keep them nice and safe if you need to travel a lot, or even if you just want a nice way to store everything and keep them organized. This might help you out. So how does this work? If you haven't seen my other videos on my trays, maybe I'll link those in the description. I'll just show you really quick right now. The idea is we're making a magnetic surface and we're putting magnets underneath all of our miniatures. So the size of the magnets I use varies. Some of the guys, all right, come on now, there we go. Some of them, as you can see, have smaller magnets and some have larger. So these are 25 millimeter bases. So that should give you an idea of how big the magnets I'm using are. Some of them I think are 1/8 inch and some of them are 1/4 inch magnets. And they both work really well, but if you're using something heavier, you're gonna want a bigger magnet. So everything sticks to this magnetic surface, this ferrous surface we've created, and then you can do things like this. You can turn your tray perfectly vertical, upside down, whatever you want. And as you can see, I mean, I'm shaking this pretty vigorously here. Nothing's moving at all. So everything is nice and protected and stable. So when you put this tray here inside of a Tupperware or a container, you put the lid on it and throw that in your car, go to your event, go to your friend's house. It's going to be protected. It's going to be safe. So let's get right into it, guys. I'm going to show you really quick. A lot of people have asked me what container I use. This is the one I'm using. I got this. Hopefully you can see it. Maybe I'll zoom out a little bit. Not in. Oh, I guess we're all the way out. This is just a container I got at my local Walmart, depending on where you live or what you can get your hands on. It might be a little different for you. So there's the brand that I'm using. Some info there if you maybe want to just do the same setup I have. I like these because I can put a tray in it. I actually have like 4 of them, and then you can stack them on top of each other and keep your army all nice and tucked away. All of your trays are in the same area, so that's why I like these. But really, any container you can get your hands on will work. Just make sure it's got enough depth. So when you put your tray in here, put your minis on the tray, you can still put the lid on without smushing anything inside. You wanna make sure it's deep enough. This one's about 7 inches deep. So 7 or 8 inches, I think. That's plenty. Just make sure it's deep enough. Don't buy one that's too, shallow, like half this would be way too shallow. So basically what you're gonna do, you get your hands on a tray and measure the inside diameters. So my trays ended up being about 17 inches by 18 inches. So let's just look really quick, make sure it fits in here. And you're gonna make sure that you can fit your tray inside like this. And when you shake this around, your tray should be nice and snug. It'll have a little bit of movement, that's fine. But you want it to be pretty close to the inside diameter of your container, whatever container you're using. Okay, so get your measurements, get your container, get some measurements, and now you're gonna go to your local hardware store and you're gonna look for MDF. And you could use plywood, you could use particle board, you could use whatever you want for this tray surface. I chose to use MDF just because it's a little bit nicer than maybe some particle board or something, and it's really not all that expensive. And I think this looks like 1/2 inch to me. I don't remember, but that's how thick it is. You don't need to get 3/4 inch thick, really heavy duty wood and go crazy. So you need to get some kind of wood to build your tray. Now, if you don't have access to something like a circular saw to cut this at your house or at a family member's house, a lot of hardware stores will cut it for you if you tell them what size you want it cut. And so, find somebody in the store and be like, hey, I need this cut to this size by this size, and they should go cut it for you, and you'll be all squared away. Now, you'll notice that the corners are cut here as well, and that's because the way the container's set up, if I had it squared off, it would not fit inside because the container is kind of rounded on the edges. So keep that in mind and get your measurements, make your cuts or get it cut, and you should end up with something like this. Okay, now you might have noticed that I have a little pocket on the bottom here. I chose to do this for codexes. So this pocket was just created not with any specific kind of measurement or anything like that. I just took some scraps and made about 1.5 inches of clearance all the way around, big enough so I could put my codex in here, any maybe an army list if I'm using like battle scribes, something like that. So it's all in one spot. And when I set the tray down, it goes on top of the codex, and now the codex is in that case too, and it's nice and protected. Remember, this adds height, so you're gonna have to watch your clearance. Just keep that in mind. You can make it with or without this little underneath little section here. I'm binding everything together with Gorilla Glue. That's what I use. You could use wood glue. Wood glue would work really well. Pretty much any high strength adhesive that you have will probably work. That's what I used. So make your tray, maybe put some stuff on the bottom here if you want. If not, that's fine. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but what we want is to make it magnetic, right? Some ferrous material. So you can go ahead and buy a length of sheet metal. They have like 18 gauge, 20 gauge sheet metal at your store, but what I found is that it's really, really expensive. So what I did was I found this sheet of, I think it's for like duct work or furnace, what do they call that, venting, like in your house, in the walls of your house where your heater, you know, all the vents are connected. I don't know what it's called. But it's nice, thin, magnetic, and very, very cheap compared to sheet metal. Like you can get enough of this to make 2 trays roughly this size for like $7 or something. Very, very cheap when you compare the cost of sheet metal. So this is obviously too small, but you want to get your magnetic ductwork or whatever you get your hands on. If you're not sure, bring a magnet to the store, stick it on in the store, make sure it sticks. That's what I did. So there you go. Cut it to size. You want it to be 1 piece. So again, this one would be too small. I need a different piece, but this is what I had left over to show you. And what we're gonna do is, again, coming to our Gorilla Glue, I would definitely use Gorilla Glue here, not wood glue. You're gonna spread it out all the way across your surface of the tray you've made. Nice and spread out all across this surface here. Smack this guy on, line it up, and I use some clamps. Oh, maybe I should, hold it the right way. Some quick clamps. If you don't have clamps, put some books on top of it or something, and weight it down and let it dry for like at least a few hours. You want it to dry for a while. You do not want this to be moving around after you're done. So let it dry up. Might take overnight. That's what I usually did, I think, is I just left it in the garage for a while and let it dry. So once that's dried, you'll have your tray pretty much done. Very easy, actually. But if you're cutting this metal and you end up with these really sharp edges, you obviously don't want that, right? So the best way I found to take care of that and to also make a nice lasting slick surface for your minis to be on is to coat it with some gloss clear coat. So this is what I used. It's a spray can, very easy to apply. You just kind of dump it on there, just follow the directions, and you'll make a nice clear lacquer kind of coating. If you've never used something like a clear coat, you're going to get a nice finish to this that's going to help to take away those sharp edges. It's going to kind of bring everything together, make a nice surface, and it'll just give you a nice finish. So you can put your clear coat on it. Now, before you clear coat it, you probably don't want it all, looking like a piece of metal. You go ahead and maybe paint it, prime it. Again, just the cheap can of primer from any hardware store that you can get. Throw down some black and maybe some other colors over the top. Maybe print out something from the internet, some like, you know, logo for your army. Make a stencil out of it, put it on here, use the spray paint that on. Whatever you want to do for painting it, do it before you clear coat it. So there you go. Paint it up, clear coat it. Now you're almost done. You could leave it right there if you wanted. But before I move on, I actually should mention, make sure you let this dry for a really long time again, like overnight, because if you don't and you touch it, you get this really gummy, nasty impression on your finish and you'll be real upset. Just let it dry, trust me, and you'll be good. So the last step that you might want to do, as you notice on this tray here, I made some handles for it. You can choose to do this if you want. It's just kind of nicer for moving it around, but it does also take up some of the space that you could be using to place your miniatures, so keep that in mind. But what that is, let's see if I can get the right angle here. I just drilled holes through my whole tray, lined it up, and put the handles on there. You buy these handles in a pack. They come with the screws at the hardware store. You can get any style you want. You can spend a lot of money on handles, I found out, if you want some nice like cabinetry handles kind of stuff, is that's where the section's gonna be. And you can pick out any kind you want. Drill the holes, line them up, make sure they're nice and straight, and fasten these on there. So then you should have something that looks roughly like this, and you're done. Pretty easy, right? Make sure it fits in your tray, and you'll be good to go. That's one thing that I might have wanted to mention earlier. When you get home and you've cut your tray, do yourself a favor and make sure it fits before you do the rest of the steps. That's, as you might have guessed, I messed that up once, so I'm salty. Don't do that. Make sure it fits in your tray, or your tray fits in your container before you go ahead and do all the other steps and then have to recut and redo all kinds of crap. So let's see, I don't think I missed anything. I hope that this was in-depth enough for you guys. I wanted to make it pretty thorough, but I also didn't want to make it too elementary in a way. If you guys do have additional questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I will respond to them and help you out as best I can. And thanks for sticking around, guys. I know I've had a lot of requests for videos on how to make these, so I really hope that you guys can make your own. Send me some pictures, guys. If you make your own, I want to see them. And I hope you like it, because this is a really great storage system, a really great transport system that has been really, really helpful for me. So hopefully it can help you guys out too. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I'm going to close this video out with just a really quick look at a two-tiered tray that I made, just to give you guys an idea of what else you could do. And this is just kind of to give you a little bit of a look without necessarily going in depth on how I made it. You can kind of take a look at it in the video and kind of see for yourself how it's constructed, but just to keep you guys, keep the ideas open for other possibilities. All right, guys, so here I wanted to show you my orc tray. As you can see, the container I'm using is probably twice as deep as the other one I showed you. So the reason I did this was to make a two-tiered tray. My orcs wouldn't fit on one. I wanted them all to go in the same spot. So I made something that was two-tiered. And yeah, I'll show you that really quick. So the idea with this bottom tier here is that you just can't put anything too far, too close to the outside edge, so that the top shelf, when you put it on, doesn't crush what's underneath it. So let me just move some of that stuff. But hopefully you guys can see in the camera here, I just framed up this top shelf with more of the board with how high I wanted it. I left out two little gaps here so I could put my fingers in, and then you just And you'll slide this back. You just drop it right over the top, and away you go. So that's the 2-tiered tray. Then you can snap the lid right on top of here, and you're done. So that might be something you guys could consider for really big armies, horde armies like Tyranids or something like that, if you have just tons of models and you want a better solution than having something like 4 or 5 Tupperwares come into an event. So those are my other ones. As I mentioned, I can stack them underneath this little table I have here, and that works out really well for me. So we've got the 3 trays and then the orc tray. Yeah, not much else to say. So hope this helped you guys out. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now.